Okay, my name is Judi Bistrian. I live in Springs and we've been there for 20 years. We are at the commercial space of Reutershan Firewood in Springs, East Hampton. It's a firewood business. We deliver naturally seasoned and kiln dried wood to homeowners and also to restaurants and some inns. It hit me like a ton of bricks, and it was something I was not expecting, because when the pandemic first hit, I thought, what are we going to do? Like, I didn't think that anybody would be calling us for firewood and we would not be making any money. And it was quite the opposite, which I was not expecting at all. I don't know why, for some reason. And it was like overnight, the phones were exploding for a full year. I was getting calls on 2 lines. I was getting emails on 2 email accounts. I was getting text messages. People were pulling in my driveway unannounced. It was just crazy. And it didn't stop for an entire year. And it was to the point where we were just getting overwhelmed and drowning in phone calls and deliveries. And it was just the worst thing I ever experienced. I mean, it was good in a way that it was the best year we had financially. For us, we pretty much ran out of wood very quickly, because as you can see, the commercial space is only so big. We can only have so much wood here, and there was, the demand far outweighed the supply that we had, so we had to hunt around up island and find suppliers for both the kiln and the naturally seasoned, and that even became difficult because there was a wood shortage, and it was hard to find a good product at that point. You know, a lot of the places that did have wood for sale, it was not of good quality. And of course, you know, we're in the Hamptons, you have to have like the best quality everything or people complain. So there was that factor. But we managed to get through it. I mean, we spent a lot of money buying wood, but we did, you know, make a nice little profit from it that year. So, you know, it all worked out. It was just a lot of work, a lot of stress. Well, the problem with the firewood, and I don't know how this works in other states, but in New York I know that you're only allowed to commercially transport wood 50 miles. So we only had a radius to go shopping and looking for suppliers. So that was difficult to find actually a supplier in our radius that had a quality product. Just about everything was, even going to the supermarket was a challenge, because all of a sudden we were dealing with this invisible, you know, enemy, the virus, and how do you protect yourself from it? And there's all these things, masks work, they don't work, like we only know what we're told by the media, or, you know, doctors on TV, and it's changing every minute. It seemed they'd say one thing and then a week later they'd say the opposite, so it was also confusing. But, you know, just, the basic hand washing, masks kind of thing, 6 feet, like, that was it. The whole thing was so strange, but I don't know, we just got through it. I didn't even want to mention this, but one of our customers works for Vanity Fair, and she had called for a firewood delivery, and I just made a comment about, it was Labor Day week. I made a comment about I don't think that there's going to be a Tumbleweed Tuesday this day, because every year after the holiday weekend the place just clears out, and one day there's nowhere to park and people everywhere, and then Tumbleweed Tuesday, the day after the Monday, you drive into town and it's like the opposite. Like, there's parking spaces everywhere, there's no lines, and it's like overnight. So I made a comment to her about, I think Tumbleweed Tuesday is canceled this year for sure. And she actually put it in an article in Vanity Fair, which I thought was hilarious. And then I thought, nobody's going to know about that. It was like a phone conversation. It was done. I said something. She was like, oh, that's great. Can I use it? And I said, sure. And then everybody started calling me like, oh, heard you were in Vanity Fair. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? I didn't even know people read that magazine. So for me, it was pretty funny. So the whole, the kids all of a sudden not going to school and the parents having to readjust and work from home or figure out how to do all that without the kids going to school. I understand that. Most people, that's how they work. The kids go to school, they have a window of time, they can go to work, no kids. But I've been homeschooling for 12 years, so I have to juggle homeschooling the kids plus running a home business. So for me, it didn't really change initially. When it hit in February, everybody was freaking out around me, and it was the same for us. Nothing changed. I go shopping once a month, and so when the pandemic hit, we had food, we had toilet paper, we had everything. So I wasn't running to the store like everybody, but when I finally had to, a month later, I was just in complete shock when I went to the supermarket and the shelves were empty. I'd never seen that in my life, and it was surreal and scary. and strange, and I just couldn't like wrap my brain around it. And then they had the whole, putting limits on food. That to me was like the strangest thing. Like, you only have one package of chicken per person, and it was just, I couldn't even wrap my brain around it. That's when it hit me. It was like a full month later. Everybody else was in full panic, and it took me a whole month to get there. And when I realized, like, what is happening, it was just insanity. People kind of came together as a community, and I know, like, a lot of my friends and people I know were concerned about making sure their elders had food, and they were checking on them and had everything that they needed. So, like, that kind of thing, yeah, the community did come together and help each other out. Being a local my entire life, I mean, I was born here. I actually am from Sag Harbor. I went to Pearson High School. The locals kind of want that break where they kind of go back to where they came from, and as they say, get our town back kind of thing. I mean, I'm not one of those people that, I don't like people being here. It helps the economy, obviously. You meet a lot of interesting people. Not all of them are entitled and rude. But quite honestly, my first thought was, I don't blame them for coming out here, because if I were in the city, I too would want to flee and get out. So I really didn't blame them. I'd do the same thing if I lived in the city and had a house out here. I'd be running out here, which they did in masses. And they all wanted firewood. The only word that comes to my mind is surreal. It was surreal for me. And I remember before it hit us, watching the TV and seeing images of streets in China where hundreds of people were wearing masks. And my first thought was, that how strange. And it never occurred to me that it was going to happen here. And it did. And then the whole getting used to the mask thing. I remember the first time I put on a mask, and it was just so strange and awkward and weird. And then, that's humans. The human nature is to just adapt, which I think everybody did wonderfully, really, because you do what you got to do to survive, and survival mode kicks in, and you just do what you got to do to protect your family and just get through it and hope for the best. So that's all I remember, is just surreal. It felt so surreal.